Welcome into another edition of Mavs Latest. I am Josyah Howard, and today is the day. It is Cooper Flagg Day. NBA Draft is here, and as we expect, the Mavericks will draft Cooper Flagg with their number one overall pick today. And man, if you've been listening so far here on Mavs Latest, you know I am so excited for this pick. Just think this guy is so versatile. He's going to add so much to this team that the addition really, if it if they can maximize where he's at currently, they're a playoff team this year. Just from the addition of adding Cooper Flagg and getting him to a place where he needs to be by April to contribute in May. And I'm not going to say June quite yet, but the excitement is there for sure in terms of the Mavericks getting some help here in terms of making a real playoff run. And with the exit of Luka Doncic, there's obviously a little bit of pessimism if the Dallas Mavericks would be in a position to get back to the playoffs even next season, even with the addition of AD, obviously adding a little bit of optimism. Adding Cooper Flagg really puts a stamp on the excitement of what the Dallas Mavericks can be this season. So, happy Cooper Flagg Day. Can't wait for the pick to be made by Commissioner Adam Silver. And, in honor of Cooper Flagg Day, Los Angeles Lakers superstar LeBron James and Steve Nash discussed on their podcast, Mind the Game, just how impressed they have been of the young former Duke forward. LeBron goes on to say, I personally think that he wants to be great, and he had a hell of a year at Duke. A guy that can do so many different things out on the floor, can play with the ball, can play without the ball. His jump shot's going to continue to get better, super athletic, a super quick second step. And also, he has the benefit of, unlike myself, he gets to join a team that is established with Hall of Fame guys like Klay Thompson, Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, right off the bat, Hall of Fame coach and Jason Kidd. These guys are. You know what these guys are like. What they can give him in terms of the blueprint, while he continues to learn what his blueprint will be. And I think that that it will be an incredible thing to have that type of presence, that type of leadership, that type of basketball IQ, and that knowledge around him every single day from those pieces. So I think he's going to be amazing. LeBron said everything I've pretty much been saying all week. That having all these guys around Cooper Flagg is going to be super beneficial to the player he can be. And I don't think it's overstated that having all this talent with all this experience late in May, late in June is going to be beneficial to a guy, like I said, I think is the most NBA ready guy in this draft. And he really just needs the right development, the right system, and the right leadership in place. Now, some might not think the right leadership's in place necessarily, but hey, man, you gotta let it play out. You can't just say, "Oh, Mad Luka got traded." You gotta let this stuff play out now, because Cooper Flagg changes the whole dynamic of what the Luka trade is and the fallout of it, because that's the reset button right there. And yes, it's lucky, very lucky, but it happened. So you got to sit back, relax, watch the ride, and hopefully the Mavericks are not only in a spot, just a year ago they're in the NBA Finals, but hopefully they can be in a spot where they could be competing for that spot for years to come again. Because if you believe Luka Doncic was already that piece, some years he's proven to be that. There's been some years where Luka was on the roster, semi-healthy seasons, and the Mavericks were still a play-in team. So it wasn't always guaranteed that the Mavericks were going to compete in the playoffs with Luka as their best guy. I'm surely a person that believed he was surely capable of that. He showed it before he got traded, so I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but I want to, again, happy Cooper Flagg Day. Can't wait to start officially talking about him as a member of the Dallas Mavericks. But some more big news for the Dallas Mavericks, something we've been monitoring all week, of course. Kyrie Irving. He decides that he's going to make Dallas a long term home. He is declining his $43 million player option and intends to sign a 3-year, $119 million contract, according to sources telling ESPN Shams Charania. Maverick officials and Kyrie Irving's agent, Shatila Riley Irving, negotiating the new deal that keeps Kyrie Irving out of free agency and in Dallas long term. This new deal includes another player option in 27-28. And again, this is exactly the stuff I kind of expected a deal like this. Some might say it's a pay cut. I don't necessarily think it is. He's coming off his third major knee injury in his NBA career. I think this is kind of the give and take of the market, the give and take of the business, right? Kyrie's sitting here saying, well, you got Cooper Flagg coming in. You could use me in the locker room, and, my talents are still, obviously, once I get back from my injury, are going to still be at a high level. At least that's the expectation. So I think this deal shows a little bit of both, the give and take of negotiations. I think it's kind of the perfect deal for Kyrie, for the Dallas Mavericks, and for Kyrie. They're, very movable deal if they wanted to move him, but it seems like they're pretty committed to Kyrie Irving. I'm happy they're committed to Kyrie Irving. I'm happy Kyrie's committed to Dallas. Because it makes things a lot easier for them now heading into free agency, trying to find the temporary replacement for Kyrie as he recovers from that ACL injury. But again, just wanted to mention Kyrie Irving opts out of his $43 million player option and tends to sign a 3-year, $119 million contract. Congrats, Kyrie. Congrats, Dallas Mavericks. Happy this got done before the draft even, because now this sets the Dallas Mavericks up to really hyper-focus and getting that playmaking option possibly in the first round of the draft, possibly in free agency. It's going to be fun to monitor. We're going to have it all here on Mavs Latest, so keep tuning in. Another guy that got a contract extension. I'm shocked. And if you've been watching, I'm shocked. Daniel Gafford, 3 years, $60 million. I don't love the deal, but he's here. He's a valuable piece when when he's playing. He's a very valuable piece. Don't get me wrong. And in this market, for what he does, $20 million annually isn't necessarily out of market. But in a space where you could have moved him and probably got a pretty solid deal back, a little bit of more flexibility in terms of your front court. Now this kind of tells me I think they're locked in on the Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively combo. I think they are very committed to that, and I think the biggest winner is not Daniel Gafford. The biggest winner is Anthony Davis. That boy's playing power forward as much as he's played power forward since New Orleans at this point now. Because if you lock him in for 3 years, and Derek Lively saw in that rookie deal, and I'm not gonna lie, you don't want to move off of that potential quite yet. So that tells me they're committed to that two big rotation in Derek Lively and Gafford, and AD playing the 4. So I mean, again, a big win for AD. Mavericks most likely, playing Cooper Flagg at the 3, which a 6'10" 3 in this NBA, it's kind of a prototype at this point. So that actually might work out defensively for them. They're going to be a really long team if they end up going with the lineups I think they're going to consider. And obviously they still have a couple more moves to make, again, to fill that role without Kyrie Irving being there. But again, want to congratulate Daniel Gafford, because I thought he was getting traded for sure. I can't lie. I thought this was the odd man out in the front court, but clearly not. He locks it in, 3 years, $60 million. Dallas clearly showing loyalty to some, haven't shown loyalty to others in the past, but it seems like they're really trying to rebuild that reputation by the guys that are still there. They're locking them in and they're keeping them around in Dallas for a while. So, congratulations to Daniel Gafford. But just wanted to get to some Mavs chatter before we call it a day here. Obviously, one of the Mavericks trade targets is now off the board, or is he? Jrue Holiday traded from the Boston Celtics to the Portland Trail Blazers for Anthony Simons and 2 second-round picks. Now I say, is he off the board? He's off the board, or is he? Because I'm not confident this is Jrue Holiday's last stop. I think this is something where they're going to reroute Jrue somewhere else, possibly the Dallas Mavericks. So I think I say this. I want to bring up the Jrue Holiday trade to say, just because he got traded to Portland doesn't mean he's not necessarily still a trade target for the Dallas Mavericks. So I definitely keep eyes out on a possible second trade destination for Jrue Holiday. May not be the Dallas Mavericks, but I would imagine the Dallas Mavericks are probably on the phone with the Portland Trail Blazers. Not a report, but I am just speculating that they probably are going to be on the phone with the Portland Trail Blazers if they have not been already. One last thing I wanted to mention in terms of just playmaking guards that the Dallas Mavericks should be looking into. Mason Schwarber of Smoking Cuban, he brings up, the Oklahoma City Thunder winning the NBA championship this year, and teams kind of needing to lean on the blueprint of that team. And one guy they mentioned, Mason Schwarber mentioned, is Alex Caruso on the Thunder, and how the Mavericks need somebody to fill that role. And he feels that Lonzo Ball is the guy that filled that role. And I've talked about Lonzo in the past, and I'm really iffy on Lonzo, at least in that episode, of just how healthy is he? Because Dallas can't afford Lonzo Ball to miss time. They need a guy that's going to come in and play. And I think if Lonzo comes in and plays, he fits the exact culture of what Jason Kidd and Nico Harrison want this team to be. Because he's a staunch defender, going to hit open threes, and he would be the best playmaker on that team in terms of just passing. Obviously, Kyrie, in terms of the whole picture of playmaking, is the best playmaker on the team. But if they added Lonzo, they'd really be adding a floor general, lockdown defender. Honestly, somebody that I think needs to get to Jason Kidd almost immediately. So, again, not necessarily a risk I would love the Mavericks taking, but if he's healthy, I think he could actually be an X factor for them. So, again, it's the risk-reward thing. Don't necessarily think it's a risk that Dallas should take. But this has been Mavs Latest. I'm Josyah Howard. Again, happy Flagg Day. Can't wait for Cooper Flagg to officially be a Maverick. And let's get it, y'all.